Welcome to the I Work For Me podcast. This is Melina Lewis, and in a slightly different setting this time. As you can see, we are in my lounge, which is super exciting, and I've got Charles Maisel here with me in the flesh instead of via Zoom, and that is super cool because Charles actually lives down the road, but for a few bob, we can give you his address. But it's really, really cool to have him because Charles is great in terms of entrepreneurship. He has a very long list of credits that go against his name. He is also a fundraiser and the creator of foundations. So, yeah, quite a long laundry list there too. And he loves to surf. So that is Charles. He'll tell us a bit more about himself, and we're going to jump straight in. So, Charles, thank you so much for being here.
Our pleasure. It was just down the road, so it's fine.
We could just call you up. Yeah, exactly, which is the best. So, Charles, before we kind of jump in, what I usually like to do is ask people, when you were a little kid, what was your first recollection of what you wanted to do? I mean, did you, at like 4 or 5 years old go, I want to be an entrepreneur? Or what was it that you wanted to be as a kid?
I think that's a good question. I was actually thinking about that this morning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the journey.
Yeah,
of where you get to where you get. I was thinking about that.
Okay.
And, 2 thoughts came to my mind. The one was that I think I've always been a bit of an innovator. Like looking for, even when I was a kid, I would look for how to do something differently.
Right.
Whether it was technologically or systematically, or I'd look at things and go, jeepers, that's so old school. Like why is that so old school in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it? Because everything becomes old school eventually.
Yeah.
And do people change or don't they change, and how does that change? So I think whether I was playing tennis or watching sports or playing sports as a kid or looking at the world, I always looked at things a little bit differently. I think it's got a little bit to do with my Gemini personality.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
The yin and the yang. I can be the life and soul of the party, and I can be a complete hermit the next day, weeks. Exactly. So I got that sort of balance between seeing the difference between 2 different worlds sometimes. Yeah. I like living in normality, but I love chaos at the same time. Because so chaos creates change.
Totally, exactly. And I do get Geminis because I grew up with one. My dad's a Gemini, and Stu's Bob, he's a serial entrepreneur. And so there you go. Maybe we should put a poll out about Geminis and entrepreneurship, but maybe they are the world's best entrepreneurs.
I do think another Gemini will always connect with another Gemini for some strange reason. They connect. They know each other.
Yeah.
It's like weird. Because they're often a little bit oddballish.
Yeah, and the thing that you say about that, laugh and soul of the party, and then I don't want to see people for weeks. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's my dad. So so funny.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Now I get you.
Yeah. So as a kid, I'd always be thinking.
Right.
It's about innovation. I'd be reading about innovation. I wasn't necessarily doing much.
Right,
as a kid, but I was definitely thinking about it. My dad's an entrepreneur.
Right.
My mom's an entrepreneur. They all had their own businesses.
Okay.
So I would never grow up in an environment where someone had a job, ever.
Yes.
And I think that also makes a significantly big difference.
I think so. Yeah. And that actually brings us to why we're here today, which is we sat down a few weeks back and we were talking business and all sorts. And you said, actually, the most important thing to be talking about now is how do we as parents grow our children into entrepreneurs or grow that thinking of entrepreneurship into our children's education? They're not getting that at school. No. So how do we as parents light that entrepreneurial fire in our children? And I am excited to talk about that. So one, possibly having entrepreneurial parents, and both you and I do have that.
Yeah.
What else? Like, do we start a conversation? Do we put them on a course? Like, how do we spark that, into our children instead of the mentality where we find ourselves today where children come out of school and go, I don't have a job. And both you and I don't want our children to be those people. We want our kids to be like, coming out of school or varsity and being like, right, how can I take on the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's going to become more and more important to have that mindset. It's a set, in actual fact, like you read and write.
Yeah.
It's actually a set of skill that you can build into your kids from a very, very, very young age. You can already be building certain levels of skill, or let's call it attitude or whatever, entrepreneurship. You can read in the books about all those attitudes and skills that you need to develop, but you need to be developing them personally. If I think about my own life and other people that I know that are entrepreneurs, they were learning those skills when they were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, even if it was unconscious.
Yeah.
Mostly because their parents were entrepreneurs, but the schools definitely are what I call old school. They are not teaching much in terms of foolproofing your kid to be an entrepreneur. And I just want to make a point, like I said to you, it could be a business entrepreneur, or it could be a social entrepreneur, someone that wants to change the world, and make a huge difference in the world, meaning change a massive ecosystem.
Right.
Or it could be, I'm a business entrepreneur, I just want to make money and create new environments and new products and whatever.
Yes.
So either way, the techniques, the skills, and everything are the same. The attitude is the same.
Yeah. It's that ability to, I want to say, think for yourself, and have the confidence, or maybe
definitely the confidence.
Also to not be scared of failing.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
How do you teach that?
It's a lot of it's when you teach anything, whether you teach a sport, whether you teach people to do, like if I had to teach someone how to surf, it's just practice, more practice, and practice.
It's fail a lot.
Absolutely. 100%. So I think one thing that I admire the Americans a lot about is the Americans definitely inculcated a lot into their culture, and you see it because you see lots of things emerging, but they definitely are not, they will see failure in a different way to South Africans.
Absolutely.
I agree with the failure thing. You have to fail, and everybody knows this. An old entrepreneur will always say, you have to fail a lot.
Right.
But yet it's easy to say.
Yeah.
When your kid's failing a lot, are you going to encourage him to keep going or not?
Exactly.
Are you going to, and how, that's the role of the parent. The parent is say, you failed at that, that's fine. You can give up or you can persevere.
Exactly.
You might not be the best surfer in the world, but do you enjoy it? Yes, I enjoy it. Do you want to compete? Yes, I want to compete. I want to be the best. So carry on.
Right.
Now, the parent might know that the kid will never get there, but it doesn't matter.
No.
It can fail 1,000 times. It's what does the parent say to the kid while he's not winning?
Yes.
I don't call it failure. I just say it's learning the ability to persevere, which is one of the most strongest characteristics of an entrepreneur. And it's putting yourself out there, risk-taking, which is critical for an entrepreneur. I mean, look at what Elon Musk. I mean, he's an extreme risk-taker.
He's potentially on the slightly crazy side.
Yeah. But if you take no risk,
no reward.
There's nothing. You're going to sit in a job. You can sit there 9 to 5 and you're not going to be achieving much.
Exactly.
Everyone thinks this whole thing about entrepreneurs, where you can be an entrepreneur, big organization like Sunland.
No way.
I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there's no way. It doesn't work. It never worked. It doesn't happen. It's the people from outside that change systems and change things and build new products. So the fear of failure, we need to sort of eradicate that out. So and then you get for example, let's say a soccer club or parents playing. I'm using sports as an example.
Yes, great.
Because sport is a very great example.
Yeah.
And then you have parents or schools or clubs and saying, no, it's about just participating. No, it's not about participating. It's about competing, because an entrepreneur is competing for resources, for space, for clients. It is a competition. So if you're going to say to your kid, it's okay just to participate, it doesn't matter, you're completely taking away from the experience of failing, learning, growing. Okay, I fail well and I win well. Because you're not always going to fail.
Creating that good sportsmanship thing.
Absolutely. And that's where you see real good sportsmen. They fail well, they lose well, and they win well.
Absolutely.
And that's part of entrepreneurship. Sometimes you've got a new business. You've got to see 100 people to get one yes.
I know.
So you're getting 99 no's. I mean, for goodness sake,
You're digging deep.
you've got to be very resilient in order to but you can learn that. But you've got to learn it as a young kid.
I know. And it's so hard because, you know, I've read also lots of articles around grit. There was that psychologist who created that term, and I love the term. It's that ability to push through. So not necessarily the brightest kid in the class or anything like that, but the kid that is consistently driving forward and moving the needle.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the kid that can get stuff done and as an adult make stuff happen.
Totally.
Isn't waiting for the gold star.
No.
You know?
No.
So there's a lot to be said for kind of just do the work and push through.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes I use time as an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
I focus a lot on time when I teach my kids or other people that I get involved with, when I mentor people.
Yeah.
Time is not 6 months or a year. For me, when I'm working on something, it's 10, 20 years. That's my time frame.
Okay.
I know it's not, you can't think short term, short game. Being an entrepreneur, you've got to be teaching your kids the long game.
Right.
So, for example, my son, you know, my younger son, who's the number 2 in South Africa in all-styles karate.
Oh, wow.
But he was born at 600 and something grams, this big, immensely tiny, prim. He was always the smallest in everything, probably still one of the smallest, although he's now all muscle. And when he was, throughout his karate career, he was the smallest guy. But, I mean, he was nothing, weighed nothing, smallest guy, but the biggest heart. But I used to just keep encouraging him and say, keep going, keep going, keep going. He's got talent, but the heart and the grit is what's been built now. Now that he's done it in a sport, and he's going to keep going for another 10 years, let's say, and achieve even bigger things. But now that he's got the grit built into him, I already see it in when he does schoolwork. I already see it when he does thinking of businesses and ideas and whatever. And I can see that grit is already built into him. It's there. It's resilience. It's toughness.
It is.
And if anybody says to you, you can make it out in the world without that, I think they're delusional.
Totally.
Absolutely delusional. You know,
no, you've got to find it within yourself. So, you know, sure, it's cool if you've got a partner or someone to kind of hold your hand or someone to go home and cry on their shoulder to. Absolutely, you need the support of your community.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the person who gets you out of bed is yourself and your own desire to kind of make it happen. And if you are expecting to get a pat on the back every day because you were the kid that, you know, won every award or certificate,
no.
There's a good chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So, like, if I go back to the karate thing of my son, every time he gets on a mat and fights another guy one-on-one, that's risk-taking for me. You're building your risk-taking ability. And then he'll go and say, and then I'll say to him, well, my other son, who's a surfer, second son, and I'll say to the younger son, you do karate, but you're not surfing with us. Come on, take a chance, get in the water, let's go. And I'll take him on big journeys, and he'll absolutely be afraid as hell, but he'll do it. And then he comes out and he went, no, it wasn't so bad.
I survived.
You
didn't drown him.
Not so bad. Not so bad. So all of those qualities you can teach a kid, you know, and
in the simple ways. It's not about kind of researching the Cambridge entrepreneurship course for 5-year-olds.
No.
It's just about in the little things in every day, about thinking, applying business skills into a child's world. And I like the idea around in sport, because I know my son plays tennis, and it's such a huge mental game. And I can see when he loses his confidence.
It's his heart.
The game, it's six love.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. And I sit there and I want to weep on the side of the court, you know, and maybe I'm not telling him the right thing when he comes off the court. You know, maybe I should be saying, oh, you lost. Oh, well, you'll have to try again to win next time. Or, you know.
What do you say?
I'm like, I keep on saying to him, you've got to find your inside thing. When he plays a doubles game and he's very lucky often to have a fantastic doubles partner who maybe not so much in skill but in personality, where they are like, hey, Carl, they're like high five. The game changes, shifts completely. And so I said to him, I said, you have to build that person inside you. And
so the other thing about being an entrepreneur is, and not a job, because you're not getting an income every month as an entrepreneur. Right. You sometimes going through these long periods of stress. It's the same as your son, dealing with playing by himself is stressful. Playing with another person or a team in a soccer team is easier because everyone takes the care. But when you're on your own, as a tennis player, karate guy, on their own, they're just them. It is stressful. But you've got to build that capacity and that skill to deal with those stresses. So I have a friend during COVID who lost his job. He's never had a business. He's never built the skills his whole life. He's worked in finance, lost his job. He's 45, he's white male. Because he never built any resilience, any of the skills that I'm talking about, he's now in therapy on Prozac, and he can't see out. So all he's doing is looking for other jobs. Even if he gets another job, he's only got 10 years. And then he's out. And then what? So I've been trying to encourage him to go and do it. He hears me. He can hear what I'm saying. He's not an unintelligent person. But he doesn't have the skills. He just doesn't have those skills, the resilience, the toughness to go and do it on his own. And I encourage parents sometimes, like my boys, they used to walk up these mountains. When they were 3, 4, and 5 on their own, I used to say, go. On their own. And then they used to do it. And they used to find their way back. And my wife used to freak out. Like, how can you do that?
Like a good mother should.
I said, because, no, I used to make them go on their own. Not even with their brother. And then used to come back. And then the one day we had these friends from overseas, Americans. And my son was about 6 or 7. He'd walked up the mountain hundreds of times on his own. And eventually we could find my son and the other little boy that was there, also about a 7-year-old. And they were gone. And the parents were freaking out. And I was like, let me have a think here. What is a couple of options? And I said, I'm telling you now, he's taking that boy up the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went and I know the route, and I know the route he would have taken. And I walked, and I could see these 2 little 7-year-olds walking up the mountain on their own. My son had taken him. Didn't ask permission, just went. And I think that, in a way, all these things, sometimes I think with a lot of sort of left thinking, that, you shouldn't push your kid too hard, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't, whatever. But I mean, the reality is, he knew what he was doing. I saw him in the distance. I didn't actually call him. I watched him and I just followed. And then I came back and they didn't even know I was there.
Cool.
And he got him home and the parents were freaking out, like, you've got no idea. And and then my wife looked at me with a glaring look because she knew that I had known and I'd followed them and I just said, look, he knew what he was doing. Yeah. And I was there to watch. Yeah. I was kind of hovering, but they didn't see me. And I think that's good for kids. And I don't think kids do it enough. They're not taking...
Helicopter parenting is real.
And too much of that and too much mollycoddling, I think, is the word as well.
Yeah.
They're scared that their kids might be emotionally damaged by some sort of trauma or failure. But in actual fact, if the parent is there to hold it and encourage it and say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you need to go, you need to try again.
It is, and I think that's so true in the sense that we don't allow enough sadness, I almost want to say. We want to kind of, our children must be happy all the time. And I'm like, that's delusional. Do you wake up happy every day? No. You've got to have everything. You've got to have your shouty moment, your sad moment, your happy moment, all of that stuff. And we're too scared to have our children unhappy. To see them like, well, I didn't get that and I'm so cross and angry and I hate you. Okay, that's fine.
So if you take that to the next level, so not a business entrepreneur who business entrepreneurs want to make money.
Yeah.
It's quite simple. I mean, they might have a good product that
Yeah.
help society, but generally it's about making bucks.
Sure.
But this generation and the millennials, which is my oldest son, they really do want to change society too.
Yeah.
Now, you need to have those as well. That's exactly the same skills to make it happen. You know, all the resilience, the toughness, the failure, and whatever. Because, you know, someone will say, "Oh, I want to change how hospitals work in South Africa," right? And then the kid will say it to you, and he's only like 12 years old, and you'll go, "Well, you can't do that. You know, you how are you going to change how the health system works because it doesn't work for all?" So the whole thing about the younger generation, I call millennials. What is the young one called now? Like my son, he's
like
16.
Gen X, I think.
Gen X's or Z's or whatever. But they do have a much stronger social conscience than we ever had.
Oh, totally.
You know, and
I don't think I had one for years.
And they're thinking about, like, why is it unequal society and all that kind of thing, and how do I change it? So you're finding a lot of social entrepreneurs also emerging. It's the same skills, it's just you're just putting your energy into social change rather than business or money.
Well, which is so needed, especially in a country like South Africa. And I'm sure you see it, you know, in the work that you do, you know, how that can happen because it is so important.
Yeah. So then what I encourage, and I mentor a lot of young people from university level, and sometimes school and whatever, I say to them, if you're going to bring me an idea, which is the next level of what you're going to do, because you have to have a concept.
Yeah, sure.
Which is also a skill, by the way. And I'll explain to you what I do with them, with kids. Is so if you're going to have an idea, bring me something nutty, bring me something crazy. I'm not looking for normal.
Right.
And then they say, "What do you mean?" I say, "Well, you know, think about really crazy stuff." So I don't know if you know my seeing believe stuff. I teach this at university.
Okay.
How I use newspapers
to
teach people how to find crazy new ideas.
Oh, wow.
And I've had, if I can tell you, there's some businesses out there that are big today that came out of this technique. I'm telling you it's the truth.
I love that.
So basically, when the newspaper is produced, the journalist's job is to write the facts.
Yes.
Who, what, why, when.
Yes.
But let's say it's shack fires.
Okay.
There's a problem. The journalist writes what happens, what time, the day, how many people die, whatever, how many people lost stuff. They don't say how we're going to solve shack fires.
Correct.
So now, in an average newspaper, you're going to have 30, 40 stories.
Right.
Half of them, 80% are negative.
Totally.
Something
to do with the government.
Or something negative or bad, or something happened, or whatever. So the problem is there, it's clear.
Yes.
And the job of the entrepreneur is to find a solution.
Right.
So if you read a paper every day, you should come up with 10 new ideas every day.
Totally.
But that's a skill. And you can train yourself. I'll encourage you to do it.
Okay.
Buy the newspaper
I'm going to.
Use the old newspaper from the day before.
Yes, okay.
And then let them read it at night, make little circles, say, there's the problem, there's the problem, there's the problem.
Yes.
And then make them start to think of solutions. And allow them to be as wacky as they like.
Okay.
Let me tell you, after a week, you'll see they will have 10 or 20 ideas that you think, and you'll look at it and go, really? That is way out thinking. Like, way out thinking.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that if you carry on doing that, just think about it like this. If you do get the skill right, and this is pure practice, eh?
Totally.
It's practice, problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution.
That's it.
And if you do get it right, imagine if you had to leave this country. You don't have a job, nothing.
Exactly.
And you go to America, what's the first thing you should be doing? Read the paper.
Oh, reading the paper. Yeah.
Look at their problems. Try and figure out their solutions.
Yes.
But you don't even need to read the language. You could go to any country in the world, pick up a paper, and start figuring out a problem solution. Now, this technique I built, I designed, it's mine, but I don't own it. Meaning I don't proprietary it. I want everybody just to use it.
Absolutely.
And when people use it, I promise you they use it consistently throughout their lives. The point of the whole exercise, as a skill that parents need to learn, is you can't just have one idea as an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
you need hundreds. And then you'll try out the ones you like, and many will fail, and then one will kick. And then you'll go, oh, gee, that's really exciting.
A surprise.
That's golden ball,
Yeah.
and then you go with that one, and
Mhm.
then you know, if you're a real entrepreneur, you'll either grow it to a point, sell it, or you'll get other partners involved in it, and they'll run it, and then you'll kick on. But you've still got another 50 in your pocket,
Yeah.
and you're always thinking about them.
Mm.
And it's funny, when you're always there, you meet people, socialize, and then people go, oh, yeah, no, I'm interested in that. You go, geez, I have thought about that, and I do have a solution for that.
Yes.
It's just in my pocket, my
Right.
back brain, you know,
Yeah.
like, I've thought about it. Now, and then you network, which is the other big thing about
Yes.
entrepreneurs.
Definitely.
And you're a good networker. That's one of your core skills.
Yeah, it's a weird one because I wouldn't call myself. So I always think of networking as like a bit like negative, you know, in the terms of like
Right.
people like, you know, wheeler dealering. But
that's important.
actually, like I see, for me, I love being able to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like threads in a web. And it's like, oh, that person likes that, and we can connect there, and like that, like that, like that, like that. You know, often not necessarily for my personal kind of gain or anything, but I like to see things work together.
So the other thing that I've always taught my kids, I said, if you're going to be successful in life, it's an old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And we all know that's true.
True story.
But how many people teach their kids to keep a little black book of their network?
Oh, no.
I
don't
do.
even. Ah, okay. I'm going to steal that one too for mine.
So I teach my kids that and I'll often introduce them to people,
Mm-hmm.
like
Cool.
people that I meet.
Yeah.
So I'll bring them to my meetings, even to my coffee shop meetings, because I don't have an office.
Oh, and I've seen that happen.
I know.
Yes, I have.
And they'll sit there and they literally will not say a word. They'll just sit and listen.
And suck it up.
And if they do ask questions, they might, or whatever. But their job there is just to sit, listen, for me to introduce them, if I think there's a connection. They get the network connection, and then they can build their network.
Mm.
So, you know that whole 6 degrees of
6,
separation?
7, I don't know.
I believe
I'm sure there's like 3.
I believe in 2 degrees.
Yeah.
If you could do 2 degrees of separation and pick a person, let's say President Ramaphosa,
Yes.
and say, I can get him in 2 steps, then you know
I can.
I can.
Now I can.
You can. But the point of the matter is, then you know you are networking.
Yeah.
But you need to be networking. If you network from such a young age, get introduced to people at such a young age.
Be able to sit and listen.
So my oldest son can literally almost travel the world with a network that he's built and not pay anywhere, because he knows people through building the network that I've introduced him to, people he's met, and the network and the things there, the contact details, everything's there. And then you start to build. And then you start to build your business through that, because there'll always be people there that you need help from. Could be people in industry or people, you know, like lawyers or doctors, people that you need as well in your business. But your network is your critical factor of success. But you need to start building that from such a young age.
And so there's 2 things that I take out of that. I think.
Yep.
The first is that having your kids sit and listen to an adult conversation. Sure, no, not, you know, all adult conversations, but like I remember as a child, my folks didn't believe in babysitters. We went to their dinner parties and we sat and listened to business conversation. It's that conversation that you are able to then understand. And I think we often are too quick to push our children aside and say, go play, go play, go play, go away. Whereas actually they should learn to sit quietly.
Listen.
It's a bit old school, but sit and listen. And,
no, it's okay if they actually participate.
Yeah.
Ask questions if they've got questions.
They don't understand. Yeah, exactly. And so I think I would encourage parents to maybe have bigger, bolder business conversations with children.